let me introduce my guest to you, and then we get to start our discussion right away. And my guest in the studio. No, you are not allowed to comment on my take.
Your take has got a lot of pregnant legal issues in it.
Thank you. Let me introduce you first. And you just heard Gary Nemakomafo. He is a lawyer and a senior member of the NPP's communication team. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, my brother.
Right. And also here in the studio is Dr. Thomas Kojo Stevens. He's Vice Chairman, Public Interest and Accountability Committee. That is the PAC. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Also is our regular panelist, Abdul Malik Kwekubako, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. And we will be joined by Felix Kwachi Ofosu, former Deputy Minister for Communications, and sometime in the show also, Fuseni Issa, who is MP, Okaikwe North, and member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. We are talking a lot of finance and rot, allegedly, that has happened if 50% of monies that were actually set aside, voted, and giving out for projects, oil projects, if 50% of those projects in just a small part of the country cannot be found, that is really difficult to imagine. At Maslock, where they are also supposed to assist citizens, to be able to have a better life, to do good business, and to empower themselves. At that outfit also, we are told that some of the projects that were said to have been done are ghosts. They cannot be found. And former leaders of that entity should be lacing their boots for the courts. Now, that's not all. MPs who were ministers are also alleged to have received double salaries. You just can't imagine what's going on if these are true. We will do all of this and also talk about the new capital requirement for banks, 400 million. There has been a petition to the President and to the Council of State, and the Council of State says the banks should rather think about, merging and dealing with the situation rather than asking that these be sort of waived or staggered in a way to allow them to be able to pay. Thank you for joining us. Your views and comments are welcome through text lines that you are familiar with, particularly 1422. Now, let's get started. And yes,
Did you introduce me?
Yes, I did.
I see. What's happening to me?
I did.
I might have been sleeping.
You're very busy. You're very busy going through your documents, right? So, it's a rather difficult thing to think about. But let's begin by listening to Dr. Steve Manteaw speak about, Steve Manteaw speak about projects that were financed with oil money that cannot be found. Simply cannot be found. They don't exist. Let's hear him.
In 2016, following the initial inspection of projects in the 3 regions of the North, PIAC wrote to the Ministry of Finance for explanation on the non-existent projects. The letter was dated 4th August 2016. As we speak, the letter is yet to be acknowledged, let alone acted upon. We are therefore compelled to compile a list of these ghost projects and refer them to the Auditor General for further investigation. Should any wrongdoing be established, PIAC will ensure the trigger of the necessary prosecutorial processes to forestall their reoccurrence.
So Steve Manteaw is with the PIAC, and you just heard him speak about what you clearly must be as lost as myself, how that is ever possible in this country called Ghana. PIAC is the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. Now, let's hear Dr. Thomas Kojo Stevens, who is the Vice Chairman of PIAC, to explain to us exactly what they mean by these ghost projects. And in the course of the discussion, I'll show you contrary views expressed by former officials of the state that you cannot be right in the things you say in the manner you say them. So tell us, what exactly is this? What did you do? How did you come to do what you did? And how true is what you have put out?
Thank you. So in 2016, PIAC decided to embark on a fiscal inspection of projects that the government had allocated money to. So we went to the Upper East, went to Upper West, and went to the Northern region. So this was a sampling. So we selected 6 projects that we're going to fiscally inspect to see this, the state of the project. So after the 6 projects that we inspected, 3 of them were non-existent. Non-existent in the sense that when we went to the project sites, it just wasn't there. We spoke to the people on the ground. We spoke to the leaders in the community, etc. They confirmed that nothing had been done. Meanwhile, the monies had been allocated, disbursed, but the projects were fiscally not there.
The monies had been allocated, they had actually been disbursed.
That's so.
In the name of these projects.
The name of these projects.
What projects are we talking about here?
So the first one was the rehabilitation of the irrigation dam at Duri in the Jinapor district. So when we spoke to the people there, they informed us that no work had been done there since 1998, right? And so even though that allocated money towards this project, nothing had been done. So the second one was the rehabilitation of an irrigation dam at Nakuri in the one.
Let's understand this, the Duri one first.
Yes.
Rehabilitation of the dam.
Of the dam, yes.
So you went to physically see the site.
We went there.
The dam.
That's it.
And the rehabilitation that was supposed to be done.
That's it.
You confirm that no contractor had been assigned to anything.
The people in the community told us that no work had been done there since 1998.
But a contractor had been appointed to do the work.
That's so.
Okay. So what do? You speak to the people, you try to get to the contractor, and how do you get to confirm with government that that is exactly the location that the project was supposed to be?
Okay, so before we go there, the secretariat, does some groundwork, etc. So we go there, and then we go to the site. So we went to the site. We also spoke with the people in the community. That's okay. So we spoke to the people in the community. We spoke to the community leaders, etc. There was no doubt that we were at the actual location. In respect of the other project, sometimes when we went, we were stunned, we were shocked that there was nothing there. So we had to do a lot of background, like in terms of talking to community members, etc., to make sure that we're actually at the right place. Because it seemed so shocking that you'd go there and find absolutely nothing. So we spoke to community leaders, etc., who confirmed that you're at the right place. Nothing there.
Do you have a first confirmation from central government as to the exact location and the fact that the monies have indeed been disbursed?
Something first and foremost, the information was information that we got from the Ministry of Finance. Right. So
what is this information you got from Ministry of Finance? Saying what?
Okay. That this amount of money has been allocated towards this project. So what PIAC does is that we go there to do a fiscal inspection of the said project. So the government is very much in the know. After the fiscal inspection, when we came back to Accra, we wrote to the Ministry of Finance that we've been to the Upper West, we've been to the Upper East, we've been to the Northern regions. These are our findings. We went there to do a fiscal inspection. The project was not there. It was non-existent. Could you please respond to our findings.
Let me say good morning to Felix.
Yeah,
Welcome.
Good morning, Sam.
Right.
Could you please respond to our findings? So we wrote this letter dated 4th August 2016 to the Ministry of Finance. We never heard from the Ministry of Finance. So subsequent to that, we're very alarmed by by what we saw, and then in our subsequent in feedback from the public, because we do these district engagements, so we go to the district and we speak to the people, trying to get feedback from them, etc. A recurring theme, something that they kept asking us was that, how are we sure that the projects that the government say, they have executed, it's been done? Have we gone there to do a fiscal inspection, etc.? So based upon that feedback,
What you're saying is that the law requires you to do a certain regular interaction with the public.
That is so. It's part of
by telling them how much money has been, taken out of the oil money for specific projects.
Yes, basically how the money has been utilized.
How the money has been utilized.
That's so.
And you have been going to engage the people to explain to them that this is what the money is being used for.
Yes.
But at that point, you had not gone to do the fiscal inspection of the project.
That is so.
So you couldn't testify that these projects exist.
Yes.
It is they who urged you, and then you began to change your modus operandi to add the phase of going to the projects physically to inspect.
To inspect.
Okay.
Yes.
Take us through these projects first. You've talked about Duri irrigation.
Yes.
Rehabilitation of the dam. Yes. What next?
So the second one was another irrigation dam at Nakori in the Wa municipality. So the municipal chief executive and the community leaders informed us that they were not aware of any such projects. So it was about 15,000 Ghana cedis about which had been disbursed for this project. Again, nothing there. You talk to the community leaders, you talk to the people in the municipality. They tell you, nothing has been done. They informed us that the only work that had been done there was as far back as 2006, and they know nothing about any such projects, So same project, so same story as with the first irrigation dam. So the third one was a 6-unit classroom block at Farikia Islamic Institute. That was in the Tamale Metropolis. So again, PIAC, we go there to go and inspect this project. No such block. So we talk to the authorities there, we talk to the people in the community. They say no such project has been undertaken. Right. So this was about, so the money that had been...
You are sure you didn't go to the wrong place?
Yes, we are sure. So like I said, before we go, there's a little groundwork that is done, etc. And again, our reaction was like yours. Are we sure we're in the right place? Because it seemed too shocking, too incredible to believe. Because if you look there, there's nothing there. This thing. So we asked a lot of inquiries, confirmation that you're at the right place. There was even the same, the signs, etc. said Farikia Islamic Institute. We're in Tamale, right there. So he asked, is there any other Farikia Islamic Institute here in Tamale, blah, blah, They said, this is it, No 6-unit classroom block, So that was it. So the third project, non-existent.
Interesting. When you were putting this, your reports out to the public, you suggested that this cost us, or the state, $1.2 billion. Do we understand that to constitute only the 3 projects that you visited?
No.
You visited 6 projects, and it is 3 that were non-existent in the regions in the north.
Yes. It's an amalgamation of different projects, including the street project. So in terms of the street project, you have a situation where we have severe cost overruns. So let's say, for instance, 200,000 Ghana cedis is what is budgeted for a street project. Now, when the project starts, somewhere along the way, it stalls because the money stops coming. So the contractor stops work. So the contractor stops work, it could be for like a year, 2 years. He comes back after, let's say, 2 years. When he comes back, first and foremost, the work has deteriorated. So he has to start further back from where he left off. That costs more money. Now, when he's eventually done with the project, because of the delays, etc., the interest which has accrued, the amount has ballooned. So if you look at some of the figures we have here, right? So work done, if you look at the figures in terms of the road projects, for instance, right? So rehabilitation of Anyenaso Setri Dumasi Road, which is in Ashanti region, the original sum was about 8,900,000. When all was said and done, the total amount came to 37 million. From 8 million, it ballooned all the way to 37 million.
Within what period?
Within the period, so the year of disbursement was 2014. But when it was completed, the cost overrun was 28 million Ghana cedis. If you look at the rehabilitation of the Breman, UGC, and Dote main block, no, let's look at the upgrading of the Edukrom area roads in Kumasi. In Ashanti region, 2014, again about 3 million Ghana cedis was what the original sum was. When all was said and done, it was about 4.8 million that was expended on the project. So we had a cost overrun of about 1.5 million. If you look at the partial reconstruction of the Trom Junction from the Sumenya Idumase Pong Road in the eastern region, so the original sum was about 30 million Ghana cedis. The total sum, when all was said and done, was 35 million Ghana cedis. So you had a cost overrun of 4 million Ghana cedis. So if you look at the rehabilitation of the St. Peter's to Third Gate Road in Adentan, the original sum was 4 million. The total certified amount was about 4.3. So we had a slight cost overrun of about 325,000 Ghana cedis. If you look at the rehabilitation of the Chimota Bypass Road to West Legon in the Greater Accra region, the original sum was about 6.5 million Ghana cedis. When all was said and done, the total amount was 7.7 million Ghana cedis. So you had a cost overrun of about 1.1 million Ghana cedis. If you look at the bitumen surfacing of the Tazevu, Devego, Agove Junction feeder roads in the Volta region, the original sum was 13 million Ghana cedis. When all was said and done, it came to 31 million Ghana cedis. So you had a cost overrun of 18 million Ghana cedis. If you look at the bitumen surfacing of the Flaro Town Road and the Kita Area Road in the Volta region, the original sum was 3.1 million Ghana cedis. When all was said and done, 5.6 million Ghana cedis had been expended on the project. So you had a cost overrun of 2.5 million Ghana cedis. If you look at the upgrading of the Eastern Corridor project from Asukuma Junction, Hohoi section, in the Volta region, 105 million was the original sum. When all was said and done, 135 had been expended. So it's a litany of projects where.
So these overruns, have they not been explained, or you are just not satisfied? Are these not natural occurrences in the construction industry?
No.
Or built industry?
No, I'm saying. You see, when we go on site, we talk to the project engineer, we talk to the those involved in the project, etc. A common complaint that ran across with virtually all the road projects was the fact that monies which were supposed to be paid to them, it was not paid at the time it was supposed to be paid. So if you do that, then definitely you are going to have these cost overruns. So one advice, which basically virtually all the field engineers, etc., communicated to us, before you start any road project, you must ensure that you have the money, to complete the project. And that if you have these breaks, then, they're definitely going to be cost overruns.
So it means this has been explained to you?
Yes, it was explained to us. That was the delays, was the stalling the project that caused these huge cost overruns. So that was one. Another thing that, they communicated to us was that if you're going to do a project, all the ancillary things, let's say the road markings, the gutters, etc., you must put all that, in one contract. You don't do the road and then go and give a contract to some other person to come and do the road markings or the gutters, etc. That all the ancillary things must be done at once. And that it's cheaper, it's more cost efficient, it's a much more prudent way of executing the project.
Okay. So these are, about how many 9 projects that you refer to, road projects, where there were cost overruns, but he's also taking us to 3 projects that were simply non-existent. The monies that were voted for those projects, how much for each of those projects? The Duri and the other one, the 3 dams.
So
how much was this to cost?
So Duri was roughly about 52,000. Nakori was about 15,000. And then the 6-unit classroom block at Farakia was about 30,000.
Okay. Felix.
Yeah.
We have heard John Jinapor, who was Deputy Minister of Power at the time, try to explain that the PIAC doesn't seem to have a better grasp of what is going on. He seemed to suggest that when things are budgeted for, it is not automatic that they will be done, and that this is the confusion they suffer.
Sure.
That some of these were things that were budgeted for, and often not all the things that government budgets for are done.
Sure.
Beyond that explanation, or how is that really a sound explanation in a situation where we are told that the monies were actually disbursed?
Well, it is. In fact, for me, it is central to this whole discussion. To begin with, let me say that I have absolute respect for the work of the PIAC. I have absolute regard and respect for the likes of Dr. Manteaw, Dr. Stevens, and the others who have accepted this onerous responsibility to police the utilization of our oil proceeds.
Right.
Indeed, based on the experiences of other African countries and our own recent experiences, it is important that the citizenry of this country take active part in the way that monies are utilized and in the way that proceeds and funds are disbursed on their behalf. That said, I must also hasten to add that it is imperative that in the course of their work, they do not put out information in a manner that unwittingly, perhaps, creates sensationalism and needless alarm. To begin with, when you say that 50% of monies voted for projects to be funded with oil money have not been accounted for, it creates significant alarm and suggests some wrongdoing ab initio. When in fact it is the case that PIAC selected, 46 projects at random out of an estimated 500 projects that have been earmarked to be undertaken with oil proceeds. In this particular instance, they went to the northern, upper east, and upper west regions and inspected 6 projects in all and found that 3 projects that had been budgeted for had not been executed. Now, when you report that and frame it in such a way to suggest that nearly half or almost half of all monies voted for the execution of oil-related projects have not been accounted for, it creates a problem. It distorts the true picture. I'm not sure that when you hear that 3 out of 6 projects have not been executed, you would react to it in the same way as when you hear that 50% of all projects earmarked to be executed with oil proceeds have not been executed. So it is important that they take note of how they communicate their findings. I'm not sure whether they themselves or they alone should shoulder the blame. I think that in many respects, the media too has to shoulder some of this blame, that they distort the true and accurate picture that should be presented to the public. The second point is that I've read the report. I've also listened to Dr. Manteaw, and I've just listened to Dr. Stevens. They admit that after they made these findings and presented them to government, they are yet to receive a response, if I'm correct. Absolutely. Now, government can be criticized for its slow response to their queries, but that response is nonetheless vital to test the accuracy and credibility of the claims that PIAC is making. Because if you've not received responses from the agency or the authority that is supposed to superintend the disbursement of these funds, all the findings that you make can at best be classified as inconclusive work. It is when responses have come from the appropriate government agency and they have been weighed against what you have found and gaps have emerged that conclusive pronouncements can also be made. Again, I have read the report. I have listened to Dr. Manteaw, and I have just listened to Dr. Stevens. There is as yet to be made clear exactly what they mean by monies have been voted or allocated for projects and the projects have not been found. What happens is that at the beginning of the budgetary year, the Minister of Finance goes to Parliament. And if you check the appendices of the budget, they indicate what they will be using petroleum proceeds for, because the law requires that he submits a report on the previous year's spending and a plan subsequently on how oil proceeds will be spent in the year under review. Now, when the minister says that, for instance, Duri Dam 58,000 Ghana cedis has been allocated for its construction, it does not mean necessarily that if you go to the site at the end of the year, you will find a dam. The dam will only be built if the money is released to the agency that is supposed to execute it. If a contract or a contractor is selected and the contract is awarded to him and he is given money to execute it, it is at that point that you can find a project. If all these processes are undertaken and you still go to the site and find that the project has not been executed, and you bring that query to the attention of government, and government provides a response that is not satisfactory, then you can conclude that some wrongdoing has taken place. So I am not sure, and as I walked in, I listened to Dr. Stevens, it was not clear from his submission that he can state authoritatively and conclusively that the money was actually released, and he has proof that a contractor was selected and a contract awarded and money given to him and the project has not been executed. That information has not come forth from PIAC, yet it is being bandied about that some wrongdoing has taken place and that monies have been released or voted or allocated, depending on what you want to say, for the construction of some project, and it has not taken place. I am not sure that that is exactly what has happened in this instance. With regards to cost overruns, like you indicated, it is not a new phenomenon, even if it is a regrettable one. Several factors can cause that. To begin with, oil proceeds flow into the national kitty in trickles. It does not come in droves. Sometimes you budget for a certain amount that you are expecting based on your benchmark revenue and all other factors that you've considered, and yet find that due to perhaps stalls or stalling of production of oil itself, or a fall in the world market price of oil, you don't realize all the proceeds. For instance, in 2016, we projected to receive 1.4 billion Ghana cedis. At the end of the financial year, we received only 711 million Ghana cedis. In that instance, many of the projects that you budget for in the budget in the preceding year will suffer. They will not take place because the money would simply not be available to execute them. So you may well have awarded a contract and will be looking forward to making receipts in oil revenue in order to be able to finance the project to its conclusion. And yet, a time comes when the money simply doesn't come. And so you are constrained in terms of disbursing money to the contractor to continue the project. So it may stall. And at the time that you finally come by some money, the project cost would have escalated. There are instances also where fluctuations in the price of building inputs can actually cause the cost of the project to escalate. There are other times that in the execution of the project, you meet some, if you like, unintended obstacle that needs to be overcome, which escalates the cost of the project. Or that you find that there's a need to do additional works in order to ground the project that you are doing. That may also increase the cost. But at the end of the day, what matters most is that all monies that are released are accounted for properly, so that we are sure that there's been no underhand dealing or there's been no corrupt practice. So whilst I have great respect for the work that PIAC is doing, I think that they need to refine, or if you like, fine-tune the way that they put out this report. It will also perhaps help for them to put their advocacy in proper context. Because if you send queries to government and there's a lag between the time you send the query and the time that you are releasing your report, it is imperative to put it out there that the report you are putting out is without government responses, and that any time that government furnishes you with that response, it is entirely possible that the outcome that you put out there can change. So I am certain that no wrongdoing has happened in this instance, and that if government is minded to provide the responses that Dr. Stevens and his colleagues on PIAC are asking for, the picture will be entirely different from what, I mean, there was an instance where Dr. Manteaw is reported to have stated sometime last year that 4 helicopters, for instance, that Ghana Gas procured could not be found because there's a helipad at the Ghana Gas premises, and yet the helicopters were not there. At the time he was speaking, the helicopters were in the possession of the Ghana Air Force, and they were parked at the Air Force base here in Accra because Ghana Gas does not have, if you like, qualified pilots to man those aircraft. So they've entrusted it to the care of the Ghana Air Force, who use it as and when it is required. But this part of the narrative was missing in Dr. Manteaw's advocacy. And so the news was put out there that government says it has bought, Ghana Gas says it has bought 4 helicopters, and yet they cannot be accounted for. And it created controversy until it was pointed out by Ghana Gas itself and other operators that that was not the case. So I think that this, for me, is more about a lack of accuracy in reportage and advocacy, as opposed to any concrete wrong. Because indeed, in the 2017 budget, the final point before my brothers come in, hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis were allocated for the one district, one factory projects, one village, one dam projects, 1 million per constituency, and other projects. As I speak to you, 1.5 years into the tenure of this government, not a single of those projects have been executed. Can it be said that simply because Mr. Kenuforiata during the budget presentation said this much money has been voted for this project, and when you go to the grounds today, you cannot find them? Some wrongdoing has taken place.
To draw a difference or distinction in that to underscore, and I've heard Dr. Manteaw suggest that in respect of the oil money, and within the period that they have done these inspection of the projects, it is not the case that the monies were unavailable. So it is different from the issue of the budget,
First of
where
all,
these are projections.
First of all, the money may well be available, but has it been given to a contractor to undertake a project? And upon inspection by PIAC, they found that the work has not been executed, and yet the contractor has been paid. Is that the information that Dr. Manteaw and his colleagues see to put out? Because what happens is that if the money is not utilized, it is supposed to go back to chest. Any number of reasons can account for why the project may not have been executed. So I think that that kind of information needs to be reflected in the report that
we understand that eventually
controversy. Yes.
They are submitting this report to the Auditor General for the...
It's already been done.
It's been submitted to the Auditor General to do further work.
Absolutely.
And if it is found that wrongdoing has been done, then the prosecutions ought to happen. Now, Kuku, what's your understanding of this? From the explanation that you hear from John Jinapor and from Felix, there appears to be a sound explanation that suggests that the PIAC rather is misleading or is not comprehensive in what it is doing.
Well. I have listened to the responses from our friends who were in government not too long ago, and if they are unconvincing, as simple as that.
Okay, explain.
And I'll proceed to deal with it. See, my brother Felix made a certain point about when you're putting out such reports and you've communicated your concerns to an appropriate authority, maybe the authority may be slow in responding, you got to wait for it, or you must factor the element of that slowness in your report. In this case, it's not a slow response. We have had a non-response. They wrote a letter to the Ministry of Finance, August 4th?
4th August 2016.
2016. From my understanding, and I will be glad if I'm contradicted with documentation. From my understanding, PIAC is still waiting for a formal response to the letter they sent to the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
So it's a non-response. There's no response. It's not a question of slow response. Now, what was it that they were seeking from the Ministry of Finance? Apparently, they had gone to do physical inspection of projects that had been listed as being executed. They're not just looking at allocation of funds. They are looking at projects you've allocated funds to, and the projects are supposed to be under construction. So then we move from allocation to expenditure. And they are saying that in the course of their physical inspection, they realized that certain projects were non-existent. So there has been expenditure, but there have been no projects executed. That's where the emphasis is. If I'm wrong, he can immediately correct me so that I don't walk into a quicksand. So that's where the focus is. We are not talking about locations, we are not talking about petroleum revenues that were generated, allocated, but perhaps construction didn't take place. Yes, to that extent, those monies go back to where they came from. But if the allocation took place, expenditure took place, but the project construction did not take place, there is a missing link. And that's where the accountability issue comes in, public interest as well as accountability. And look, it's important we have this grand, let's be honest, Felix acknowledged the importance of PIAC, as well as perhaps, I believe, even its integrity. I'm not talking perfection, especially when he referred to the aircraft team. It shows that nobody is infallible. No organization is infallible. Okay, so they have limitations. But we are dealing with a report that they've put out there. This, I think their reports are sent to Parliament as well, aren't they?
Yes, the Finance Committee.
For me, because of this to and fro and all these arguments, I love this paragraph of the PIAC statement. You see, this is, and you permit me, I'll
the
quote.
Original or the defense statement? Because they had issued...
This is the 10th April statement, the press statement, not the rejoinder.
Which was issued on the 13th
Yes, the rejoinder is also very solid.
Right, okay.
It's very convincing.
All right.
At least, as at now, unless some evidence contrary to what PIAC is saying is brought forward. What they are saying for me at this moment, virtually incontestable.
So let's hear that from the 10th April statement.
In 2016, following the initial inspection of projects in the 3 regions of the north, PIAC wrote to the Ministry of Finance for explanation on the non-existent projects. Non-existent projects, I would want to repeat that. The letter was dated 4th August 2016. As we speak, the letter is yet to be acknowledged, let alone acted upon. We are therefore compelled to compile a list of these ghost projects and refer them to the Auditor General for further investigation. Should any wrongdoing be established, PIAC will ensure the trigger of the necessary prosecutory processes to forestall their reoccurrence. I love the Auditor General angle. For a review, audit review. You see, so we are talking serious business now. The arguments can go on. You can't stop it. It's a democracy. The arguments, counter-arguments, yes, no, all that. The key point is here, that the reference or referral to the Auditor General means we mean business. The Auditor General will do a serious job beyond what PIAC has done, bring the findings, and then we move on from there. Otherwise, we may be trapped in the same old radio, television, endless discourse and debates.
Okay.
I rest my case.
Thank you, Viku.
There were other important things PIAC raised, but I think the focus has come on this aspect. They raised the issue of non-involvement of the MDDAs, the Ministry of Finance's failure to provide updates in line with Section 48, 2B of the Petroleum Revenue Management. These are all very critical ingredients. But it appears all of us, our focus has gone on where is the money that was allocated and expended.
Okay, so Gary. Yes. We told ourselves that we have the benefit of the experience of other countries that have found oil, and how it has rather become, the wealth has become a curse rather than a blessing to them. And one of the ways to police and to ensure that the oil wealth is properly used is to ensure that we will allocate funds for the development of the country. And there would be an independent body constituted by various, organizations that have membership, including our own Ghana Bar Association, so that they are doing this work to ensure that the money is properly, used. They bring a report, and you learn from the report that they have asked the state to supply them information, basic information, and it has taken forever. No one is responding. Well, how does that first of all, come to you?
Mr. Lade, thank you very much. Let me commend PIAC for the good job they are doing. As a matter of fact, I think it's very crucial, and I've always maintained this point, that when you are giving public money, the money is for public use. That money is not for private use or private gain or private purposes. It's very, very clear on that point. And therefore, at any material time when you are called upon to come and account on your stewardship or how you disburse that public money, to be ready to account for the use of that money. That is just matter simplicity. Now, it is very worrying to hear, and I've listened to my brother, and listened to Felix, and listened to Senior Kokubako, and I think that at this stage I must give a ruling on the matter.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yes, having heard, having heard a
suddenly become a judge.
I have to give a ruling on the matter because you see, Dr. Stevens is saying that these monies were actually allocated, disbursed. However, upon physical inspection on the ground, the projects are non-existent. That's what you said, and I heard you say it.
Mm-hmm. They have written that.
Now,
they put it on paper.
Now, Felix is saying that, oh, there were allocations. So, it is possible that the work was not even done at all. If so, then where is the money? Did the money return back to the exchequer? Or the money has gone into private pockets? That is why the Auditor General must now go into the matter properly to now determine where these monies are. It's very, very crucial. So if at the end of the day it turns out that these monies were actually expended on projects, and yet they are non-existent projects, whoever is held to have been liable must be brought to book. And that's the reason why Martin Amidu is now the new special prosecutor to deal with these matters. But Mr. Ladi, are you surprised? I'm not surprised. Because we have witnessed such of these incidents in the three northern regions. In 2012 auditor's report, general report, we had monies given to SADA. 332 million and over to Ozontaba Cottage Industries to plant 5 million trees. What did we see? 5 million trees. What did we see? They could only account for 700 of them. 5 million trees. In fact, again, the same company giving 15 million Ghana cedis for Guinea fowl project. What did we see or hear? They say they've flown away to neighboring countries. 600 birds could be accounted for. 600 birds. You see, when I hear some of these things, sometimes it baffles my mind and I get worried.
In fact, they had been in a hurry, gone to cut down even commercial trees and to plant, other trees that they never planted.
You see, it's very worrying. It's very, very worrying. You see, when you are giving public power, giving public money as well to, and then you see, and the year under review is very crucial. The year under review, we are told is 2011 to 2016, when my brothers were in office. When they were in office, I think that, you see, they must go into this matter and then come out with a conclusion that these monies have actually gone to private hands, and those who have taken the money, they must account for the money, pay the money back into the chest, so at the end of the day, all of us can know that, look, public money is not meant for private use. That's very crucial. Now, on the issue of...
Since we have another level
yes,
that will authenticate these findings,
yes,
okay, and to clear all doubts about the claims, why are we in a hurry to sort of defame,
Mr. Ladi, we are not in a hurry. Nobody's in a hurry.
Soil their reputation.
Nobody's in a hurry. The other body to authenticate also go to the ground to go and inspect. They say they've gone to the ground, or you did not hear him. They say they've gone to the ground.
What I mean is that the fact that we acknowledge that there is a level that ought to also do some work, and that without their work, what we have is almost like inconclusive, is of, doubtful conclusion, so to speak.
No. Without prejudice to whatever authentication or whatever that will be done. You see, let us not throw any aspersion or doubt at all on the work done by PIAC. It's very commendable. They have actually not just relied on the report that they received. They went to the ground to do physical inspection of the projects. That, to me, is very, very crucial. I was listening to you carefully to even hear, I read your report. If you had not said that you went to the ground to inspect, I would have said, look, I think that your work needs additional, because sometimes you may look on documents and say, well, there were allocations of X amount of money. Possibly the money were allocated, like Felix rightly said, but the work was never done because the money never went for the projects. But here you are saying the monies were allocated, the monies were disbursed for specific projects, but you went to the ground, though the money has been paid out, the projects were non-existent. That to me is the crux of the matter. So the question that we ask, where is the money? That is the question to be asked. So without prejudice to whatever work that we done by the Auditor General, my brothers must still answer and tell us where those monies disbursed for those particular projects have gone. So that all of us will know that, look, maybe the contractor possibly might have taken the money but didn't do the work. It is possible. So the contractor, who is that contractor? And who was the person in charge? Who was the minister in charge? You see all these things, but the year the review is very crucial. We need to make sure, and I've always maintained this point, that if you are not ready to submit yourself to any accountability, don't take public office. Do your private job, because a private job, nobody comes there to come and do anything with you. But once you take public office, there will be a day of accountability. But the money you are holding is not your personal money. That's the bottom line. It's not personal money. And I really find it troubling that $1.2 billion, $1.2 billion is $1 billion.
Right.
This money could have, done a lot for Ghanaians. And they say they cannot account for this money. Overruns, cost overruns, non-resident projects in this country, Ghana. Zaladi, let us not take lightly this matter. These are the things that fester. And when they fester, all right, then it becomes endemic. People now think that is a norm. That go to public office and overnight you are a rich man because they can take public money for their personal gain. That culture.
You cannot guarantee that as we speak, project cost overruns are not going on.
That is why I'm saying. That is why I'm saying that. You see, I made my statement generic. That if you are taking public office, there will be a day to account.
Okay.
A day to account is irrespective of the government in power.
All right.
Do you understand? Day two, MPP two have to account.
Right.
They are still worship one day. All right. That is why PIAC Day 2 are there to make sure that monies for oil projects, specific projects.
But Dr. Thomas, Stevens, is there not a way that you are empowered by law to compel them to supply you the information you request, so that as we speak, this lag that is now being used as a major, plank to explain away the sort of inconclusiveness or incompleteness of your work would not have occasioned? You are set up by law. And when I read, you are a statutory institution committed to ensuring efficient, transparent, and accountable management of petroleum revenues and investments to secure the greatest social and economic benefits for the people of Ghana through active engagement with government and citizens. This is accomplished by maintaining a balanced stance, exhibiting high integrity, and remaining independent of sectorial influence. Your mandate is that the Accountability Committee has three main objects, as outlined in the law. And these are to monitor and evaluate compliance with the Act by government and relevant institutions in the management and use of petroleum revenues and investment. 2, to provide space and platform for the public to debate on whether spending prospects and management and use of revenue conform to development priorities as provided under Section 21(3) of the law or the Act, to provide independent assessment on the management and use of petroleum revenues to assist Parliament and the Executive in the oversight and performance of related functions. These are enormous responsibilities the law has given to you. And you write a letter asking for basic information to confirm the work that you are doing, to be able to verify, to authenticate the things you are doing, and you are ignored. How does that affect your work? Is there not a way you can compel them to provide the information so that you don't get in this situation where we are using that, non-responsive, attitude to explain away, to try to create, holes in your report?
So by and large, under Act 815, which is our governing act, there is no provision in there that gives us a power to compel an institution to provide us with that information. But in general, in the course of our work, in the course of the preparation of our semi-annual report, annual report, etc., the institutions, for the most part, have cooperated with us.
Okay.
Right. When we ask for information, in order to prepare our semi-annual and annual report, the information has been forthcoming. When we wrote to the Ministry of Finance, we had a legitimate expectation that they would write back and then give us feedback on our findings. That response never came. So, and if I may have the opportunity to respond to what
yes.
Proceed.
But before you do that, Dr. Steve Manteaw wants us to know that on the question of the alleged missing helicopters, those who care to know, the helicopters were bought for the Atuabo gas processing facility for the purpose of surveillance. As at the time, he led a delegation to the facility. Not a single surveillance had even been mounted. The helicopters were not and had never been sighted at the facility. This is what he put out, and journalists decided to conclude that they were missing. Subsequent investigations revealed that they were sitting in Accra. Okay. The official explanation was that Atuabo did not have a hangar, but if it were truly about a hangar, then the nearest would have been Takoradi and not Accra. It is also important to point, it's also important to point out that his work on Ghana Gas has led to the retrieval of 15 million Ghana cedis in transfer pricing manipulation for the state. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, so to respond to what was just said, by Honorable Felix, on the 12th of April 2018, PIAC came out with a press statement to respond to statement by Honorable Jinapor. So if you look at point 2, we stated that our report does not suggest in any way that 50% of all petroleum revenue funding projects are missing, as Honorable Jinapor contends, but rather 50% of the projects inspected in the Upper East, Upper West, and Northern regions. So we clarified that, but if you look at our press statement, if you look at the press statement, the original press statement of 10th April 2018, we state that to effectively execute this mandate, the committee for the first time in 2016 undertook a limited number of inspection of projects, funded with the ABFA as part of its mandatory regional engagement. In all, 6 projects were inspected in the Upper East, Upper West, and Northern regions, right? So at no point in time did we try to mislead the public. Now, if you look at point 3 of our press statement of 12th April 2018, we note that Honorable Jinapor argues in his statement that, then, quote, from the 2017 budget presented by the Finance Minister, total petroleum receipt in 2016 was 49.2% below target. And the budget report confirms an amount of 711.1 million, realized against the budget target of 1.4 million. So we note that contextually...
1.4 billion.
1.4, okay. So we know that contextually, this assertion is completely misplaced. That all the 6 projects inspected in the 3 regions were projects allocated petroleum revenue in 2014. It was the inspection of the projects which was carried out by PIAC in 2016. PIAC is therefore at a loss as the relevance of the 2017 budget he refers to in his statement, right? Because the projects were actually the allocation 2014, so it was 2 years later, in 2016, that we actually went to do the fiscal inspection. And even though it's, so let's look at point 4 as well. The PIAC's data requisition from the Ministry of Finance is on projects funded with petroleum revenues and not planned projects. Right, so if I may repeat that, PIAC's data requisition from the Ministry of Finance is on projects funded with petroleum revenues and not planned projects. That's the contention by the Honorable MP.
So how do you come to the conclusion that these are what projects and not planned?
They are projects funded with petroleum revenue and not
projects
planned.
funded, yes, and not planned.
And not planned projects.
So how do you come to that conclusion that they are not planned, but they are funded?
In reaction to Jinapor's thing,
yes,
that's what I'm assuming.
Yes, I get that. But how do they come to the conclusion that this project we are visiting is not one that's been planned, but it's already been funded?
It's information that we get from the Ministry of Finance itself.
The same Ministry of Finance
they provide us with
gives you that information.
That is so.
Right. So they gave you information that in Duri we are funding this project of the rehabilitation of the dam.
Yes, it's the information we get from the Ministry of Finance. That's what we followed up on.
Okay.
Right.
So a suggestion that this is sort of budgeted, it's a planned project, is completely wrong.
It's wrong. You know.
So your suspicion is that, in fact, these monies are missing.
So Pierre does not talk about suspicions. Pierre talks about findings.
Yes.
These are findings. We put on the table, right? So these are findings. We've referred it to Auditor General. So it's for the Auditor General to do investigations into the matter and then come out
with the point of referring to the Auditor General, you are convinced, at least preliminarily, like what we say prima facie, on the face of it, that the monies have been lost.
It's been swallowed.
Yes, that the money
is gone.
Yes, you know, the projects are not there, the money. So where's the money? You know, that's what you're asking. Where is the money? You go there, we don't find the project. So then tell us where the money is. So that's what, so it writes the Ministry of Finance that when these are findings, please respond to it. Up till now, no response.
You think that they did not respond because they don't have any response?
It's not for me to conjecture. You know, there was no response. We gave them a very long group because we did not immediately come out and then put it out there.
Yes.
You know, so this was 2016.
But questions are being asked. Is that part of your mandate from what you are supposed to do? You're supposed to be engaging with the public and explaining these matters and all. Is it part of your job to go and visit sites? And if you decided to do so, why did you decide to visit sites for the period that you did?
Okay, so we are supposed to monitor how the petroleum revenue is utilized. Make sure that it's being utilized, it's not being abused.
It's supposed to be utilized for 3 particular areas.
It's supposed to, well, there are priority areas, what you call priority areas. Which are, at the time, I believe, was agriculture, education, amortization of loans, and then capacity building. Those were the areas which were supposed to be expended on. You know, so it was a fiscal inspection, and those were our findings. Right? It just wasn't there. You know, so it wasn't planned project. It was project that they have.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can. Conclude
I think that it's imperative that I make an intervention. You see, first of all, Angweku speaks about a non-response from the ministry. I maintain that it's a delayed response, perhaps an unreasonable delay. Even then, you need to look at the period within which the delay has occurred. You wrote in August 2016.
Right.
So barely 4 months after that, we were out of power. Another government has been in for 1 year, 4 months. So as Gary was lyrical about the need for a response and the need for an investigation, I wondered whether or not he was not jumping the gun and blaming his own government for not complying with a simple request from PIAC. The other point is that at this moment, we appear to be groping in the dark. We are at the realm of conjecture. That is why I posed those questions in my earlier submission. First of all, for PIAC to be able to say that the monies are missing, they need to be able to show beyond doubt that the monies were in fact released. A process was undertaken to select somebody to execute, and the money has gone to the person.
They indicate to you the commencement level of what they do.
Yes, that may be true.
And it is that they go to inspect a list of projects.
Yes, you may
that
have
the ministry itself says it has funded.
Great. That's a key point.
Something I've been in government before, so I can tell you for a fact that it is not every list that you get that you will be able to verify for a number of reasons. That is why the counter response from government to this is so vital to testing the accuracy and authenticity of the claim that they are. I'm not for a minute questioning their integrity or ascribing any ill motives to them, but I'm saying that the process as we speak now stands incomplete. There's no audit process that is in itself final. Even the Auditor General, when he does his report, it is subject to parliamentary scrutiny. When Parliament does the scrutiny and people feel hard done by, they can test the claims or contest the claims of the Auditor General in court. And in many cases,
they have a right of appeal to the court.
In many cases, audit findings have been shut down for want of evidence to prosecute the persons against whom the findings have been made. So I'm saying that at this moment, how PIAC put out the report, or better still, how the media reported it, created needless alarm. 2, the process is not complete. And perhaps it may be useful to compel Gary's friends in government to release a response to the request that PIAC has made. I'm sure after PIAC has weighed the response of government against their own findings, and the Auditor General has also done some work and brought a report. It will be tested at various levels. It is after that cycle has been completed that we can say for sure that monies have been missing. But I don't think that Dr. Stevens and his friends can say authoritatively on your show that any money is missing simply because they went to a site where some project was supposed to have taken place and the project is not there. So it is important that we put the discussion in context and not create the wrong impression and unfairly mischaracterize and question the integrity of persons, even when they've not had the opportunity to speak to this.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if $1.2 billion is involved, I suppose that PIAC is minded by that and to do the work in the manner they have done. I'm just looking at the committee members here.
I beg your pardon. Before you go on,
yes,
1.2 billion. You're saying that when you went to the field, all the findings you made in terms of losses or
in terms of the cost overruns.
Cost overruns.
Yes, but again, you see, by
1.2
we
billion.
spoke about cost overruns.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that wrongdoing has taken place. That point must be established.
Dr. Steve Manteaw.
There were cost overruns in the building of the
Steve Manteaw is the chairman, and he is from the Ghana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. There is Dr. Thomas Kojo Stevens. He's here. He's the vice chairman, and he is from the Ghana Bar Association. Then there is Kotie So Afransomanso, the first. Okay, I think I got that name wrong. Murdered. She is from the Association of Queen Mothers. You have Mr. Joseph Winfo. Okay, that's a heavy name. Association of Chartered Accountants, Ghana. You have Dr. Arthur Moni, who is the Ghana Journalists Association's president. You have Mr. Kwesi Jonah, who is Independent Policy Think Tanks. So that's a huge organization. Kuku,
Yeah,
if you can
just a quick one.
Go ahead and come.
Just to concede, Felix has raised a point that I think has some legitimacy, but then it has to be put in the right, proper context. Perhaps a reminder from PIAC to the Ministry of Finance would have been useful in terms of the transition that we've had. But 4 months, August to December 2016, was also quite a time and space for the Ministry of Finance to have responded. But I'm still saying that before this PIAC thing, and there's absolutely nothing incurably terrible about what they've done, but a reminder to the Ministry of Finance may have helped in terms of updating.
Or perhaps even getting Parliament to compel the ministry.
Okay. So he has thank you. Thank you.
It's also a useful way to...
Thank you. Thank you
Let me just add one thing.
I think it's only fair to
30
him.
seconds quickly.
It's only fair to him.
Informally, there were calls to the Ministry of Finance. We've sent you this letter.
Oh, okay.
You know, we sent you this letter. We're waiting on a response.
But perhaps if you formalize the process and also enlist the help of other authorities, Parliament, or even court, go to it and compel them to...
That's a legitimate point.
Well, I think
as for what they are complaining about as PIAC, we know that in the public service, this thing...
There's some lethargy, which is regrettable.
But the guys in public service must change. I was recently raising, a concern about... On the 5th of April 2017, I had an accident. In the same month, the police did all the things that they are supposed to do. I applied for the report from the MTTD department, paid for it, and then they were supposed to have it done. Everything they did must have been completed within the same month, as I was informed. As we speak, that report is not ready, 1 year on. Okay? You write letters to ministries, and they never, bother.
Well, I think it's
then we get judgment debts. Even if people file cases, they never bother. And then judgment debts, interest accrue. What is this?
This is some of the difficulties possibly we have inherited. I think we must change our ways.
Okay,
isn't it? We must change our ways. But I think the ministry ought to really work together with the Auditor General to confirm whether indeed these monies have been paid from the accounts, and yet we cannot find those projects. It's very crucial.
Okay.
So that at least we can bring finality to this matter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll take a break here. We'll return. We'll get to Maslok, find out whether there are also ghost projects there and also double salaries. Felix was not a minister, but he was not an MP. Yes, but he will explain to us how that is possible, that people are getting paid twice. We'll be right back.